I still remember the sound of my mother's heels clicking away on the airport tile, that casual shrug she gave me as she handed me $200 and walked off with her new family. That single moment at gate 24 didn't just break my heart. It shattered my entire world. My name is Blanche, and I was 15 years old when my mother abandoned me. Before that day, my childhood memories were mostly happy. I remember weekend trips to the park, my mom pushing me on the swings until my stomach fluttered. On my 6th birthday, she baked a lopsided chocolate cake. We didn't have much, but we had each other, and back then, that felt like everything. Everything changed when I was 8. I came home from school to find my parents sitting on opposite ends of the couch. The air felt heavy. They told me they were getting a divorce. Their explanation was minimal. Just, sometimes adults stop loving each other. I cried myself to sleep that night, listening to their muffled arguments through the wall. My mom got primary custody, and my dad, he just faded away. His weekend visits went from every other week to once a month to nothing. By the time I was 10, he was just a name on my birth certificate. A fading memory, life got hard. My mom worked 2 jobs, waitressing by day, cleaning offices at night. I got used to microwave dinners and wearing a house key around my neck. It was a struggle, but there was a stability to it. I knew the rules, and I never, ever doubted that I was the center of my mom's world. Then, when I was 13, she met Richard. He was a wealthy businessman who came to her restaurant. He left huge tips and always asked for her section. I remember how her cheeks flushed when she first talked about him. Their relationship was a whirlwind. 6 months later, they were engaged. Suddenly, we were moving out of our tiny apartment and into his massive suburban mansion. The house came with a pool, a home theater, and 3 new step-siblings. Olivia was 14, just a year older than me, and she looked at me with pure disdain. Jackson was 12, quiet and withdrawn, and Zoe was 10, who was friendly at first, but that didn't last. It was immediately clear I didn't belong. Richard was polite but distant. His real smiles were only for his own kids. Family dinners were agonizing. They'd talk about private schools and country clubs, a world I knew nothing about. When I tried to join in, I'd get a polite nod before the conversation shifted back to them. But the worst part was watching my mother change. The woman who used to cut coupons now talked about designer brands. She colored her hair, whitened her teeth. She started referring to our old life as the struggle years, laughing it off awkwardly. It was like she was shedding her old skin, and I was still attached to it. I tried so hard to fit in. I offered to help Olivia with her homework. I complimented Zoe's art. I asked Jackson about his video games. My efforts were met with cold politeness or outright rejection. I once overheard Olivia tell a friend on the phone that her dad's new wife came with baggage. She meant me. Then, Richard announced a family vacation to Bali, 2 weeks at an exclusive resort. I felt a spark of hope. Maybe this was our chance to finally bond. That hope died when my mother took the other kids shopping for new vacation clothes. She didn't invite me. When I asked why, she just said I had plenty of clothes. I ended up using my own babysitting money to buy a simple one-piece swimsuit. A week before the trip, I overheard something that made my stomach clench. My mother and Richard were talking behind their slightly open door. "What about the arrangements for Blanche?" Richard asked. My mother's reply was dismissive. "All taken care of. She won't be a problem." When I asked her about it later, she brushed me off. "Just trip details, honey. Nothing for you to worry about." The morning we left was pure chaos. Suitcases were being loaded into Richard's luxury SUV. I noticed my passport wasn't with the others. My mom just muttered, "It's in my purse," and hurried me along. Looking back, the signs were all there. The way she wouldn't look at me in the car, how no one discussed my seat on the plane, my smaller suitcase, but I was 15, desperate to belong. I ignored every warning bell. The international terminal was a chaotic maze. Richard led the way. My mother was at his side, clutching her designer bag. The other 3 followed close behind, faces bright with excitement. I trailed at the back, struggling with my small suitcase. We reached the check-in counter. Richard handed over 5 passports, not 6. My stomach dropped. Boarding passes were handed out to everyone but me. "Excuse me," I said, stepping forward. "I think you forgot mine." The airline attendant looked confused. "I only have 5 passengers listed." Richard cleared his throat. "Your mother needs to speak with you about that. We'll go ahead to security." Just like that, they walked away with the luggage cart. My mother took my elbow and guided me to a quiet corner near a gift shop. Her face was a mask of detachment. "Listen, Blanche," she said, her voice unnervingly calm. "There's been a change of plans. You're not coming with us to Bali." The words hit me like a physical blow. "What, why did I do something wrong?" she sighed, glancing toward Richard. "Richard thinks this should be a trip just for us and his kids. A chance to really bond as a family. But I am family." My voice cracked. "I'm your daughter. Don't make a scene," she hissed. She dug into her purse, pulled out a wad of cash and pressed it into my hand. "Here's $200. You can figure it out. Just take an Uber home." I stared at the money. "You're leaving me at the airport, alone. I don't even have a house key." She gave me that shrug, the one that would haunt me for years. "Mrs. Peterson next door has the spare. You'll be fine. You're mature for your age." Tears welled in my eyes. "Mom, please. You can't do this. Richard is waiting," she said, her eyes darting toward security. "This vacation is important for our future, Blanche. Sometimes we all have to make sacrifices. A sacrifice is giving up a concert ticket." I shot back, anger finally breaking through. "This is abandonment." She flinched, but she composed herself instantly. "Don't be so dramatic. It's just 2 weeks. The fridge is stocked. I left pizza money in the kitchen drawer." She leaned in, planted a quick, dry kiss on my forehead. "I'll call you when we land." Then she turned and she walked away. Her heels clicked on the tile. She rejoined Richard and his children. She never once looked back. Olivia glanced my way and smirked before they all disappeared through security. I stood there, frozen, the $200 crumpled in my trembling hand. All around me, life went on. Travelers rushed by, families hugged, but for me, time had stopped. The betrayal was so complete, it was deafening. The tears came then, hot and fast. I sank onto a bench and sobbed. A few people glanced at me, but no one stopped. In an airport, a crying teenager is just part of the scenery. I watched the departure board. Their status changed from boarding to departed. Each update was another twist of the knife. I called her phone, straight to voicemail. My texts were delivered, but unanswered. Finally, I texted, "Having fun at the airport. Hope abandoning your child was worth the first-class upgrade." No response, not that I expected one. As evening fell, an airport security officer approached me. "Everything okay, miss? You've been here for hours." "I'm waiting for my ride." I lied, avoiding his eyes. "They're stuck in traffic." He nodded, unconvinced, and moved on. A fresh wave of humiliation washed over me. How could I possibly tell him the truth? The $200 wouldn't last. Even if I got home, I'd be alone for 2 weeks. I went to the bathroom and splashed cold water on my swollen face. The girl in the mirror was a stranger. In that moment, I knew something inside me had broken forever. The trust was gone. 6 hours had passed. My phone was dying. I found an airport restaurant and ordered the cheapest thing, fries. The server, a woman named Gloria, studied my face. "You okay, honey?" she asked, her voice gentle. "You look like you've been crying." I forced a smile. "I'm fine, just a long day." She didn't press, but she came back with a chocolate milkshake I hadn't ordered. "On the house," she said with a wink. Sugar and chocolate never hurt. Her small kindness nearly broke me. As I ate, I scrolled through my contacts. My options were pathetic. My old friends were gone. I'd never really made new ones. I texted 2 of my mom's old friends. One didn't reply. The other was out of town. Then I saw it, a name I hadn't spoken in over 3 years. Dad. My thumb hovered over the call button. What if he rejected me too? The thought was unbearable, but desperation won. I went back to the bathroom stall for privacy and pressed call. It rang, once, twice, 3 times. I was about to hang up when, hello. His voice was deep, familiar yet strange. Dad. My voice was small and shaky. A pause. Blanche, is that you, sweetheart? The concern in his voice cracked me open. Dad, I need help. And the whole story came pouring out. The marriage, the move, the airport, the $200. I was a sobbing mess by the end. There was a silence, then his voice changed, it got hard. She left you alone at the airport. Where are you? Which airport? I told him, expecting him to just wire me money for a hotel. Stay exactly where you are. He said, firm and clear. I'm coming to get you myself. It'll take me about 3 hours. Can you stay safe until then? You're coming here. I asked, disbelief flooding me. You don't have to do that. Maybe you could just help me get home, Blanche. He interrupted. I'm coming to get you. Find the customer service desk. Tell them your situation. I'll call ahead and make sure they take care of you. He hung up. I sat in that stall, stunned. My father, the man I believed didn't want me, was dropping everything to rescue me. I followed his instructions. The airline staff were immediately sympathetic. They took me to a private waiting area, brought me food. This happens more often than you'd think. The manager told me quietly, parents changing plans, leaving kids to fend for themselves. The 3-hour wait felt like a lifetime. I drifted between hope and terror. What if he didn't show? What if this was another rejection? Just as I was dozing off, my name came over the PA system. Blanche Williams, please come to the information desk. An airline employee escorted me. But instead of the main terminal, we walked through corridors to a private section of the tarmac. That's when I saw it. A sleek private jet. And walking down the stairs was a tall man in a business suit. My father. He looked different, older, more silver in his hair, but his eyes were the same. We both froze, just staring at each other. Then he strode forward and stopped just short of hugging me, uncertainty on his face. Blanche, he said, his voice thick. I can't believe it's really you. Part of me wanted to hug him. The wounded part held back. He sensed it. I'm so sorry. He whispered, for everything, for not being there, for not fighting harder. His sincerity broke my last defense. The tears came again. She said you didn't want to see me anymore. I choked out. His face darkened. That was never true, not for a single day. He tentatively opened his arms, and this time I didn't hesitate. I stepped into his embrace and cried for everything I'd lost. When we finally pulled apart, he kept an arm around me. Let's get you out of here, he said gently. The private jet was pure luxury, plush seats. Soft lighting. A flight attendant greeted us warmly. Is this your plane? I asked. He smiled, slightly embarrassed. The company's technically. I'm the CEO of Horizon Tech now. CEO. I echoed. My mother had always said he was broke. Could barely pay child support. It's been a successful few years, he said simply, then he grew serious. Blanche, I need you to know something. I've been trying to contact you for years. Birthday cards, Christmas gifts, phone calls. When your mother moved, I lost you. I hired private investigators. I filed motions with the court. They were always lost or delayed. My mind reeled. She kept you away from me, on purpose. He nodded, pain in his eyes. I've been sending child support every month. Money you never saw, I take it. I thought of our ramen noodles, our second, hand clothes. We were always broke, I whispered. She said you barely paid. My father opened his briefcase. He handed me a folder. Inside were copies of cash checks, court documents, records of his attempts to reach me. The evidence was overwhelming. I don't show you this to hurt you, he said softly, but you deserve to know the truth. As the plane took off, I felt weightless, like I was shedding years of lies. He explained he lived in Seattle now. I kept your room ready, he said, a little embarrassed, all these years, just in case. We landed, and a car took us to his home. It was a stunning modern house of glass and stone, perched on a cliff over the ocean. Home, sweet home, he said, watching me nervously. A woman named Linda, his executive assistant, greeted us. She prepared everything. He gave me a tour. The house was beautiful. but when we reached my bedroom, I stopped dead. It was perfect: soft blue walls, a huge window overlooking the water, a plush bed, a reading nook, but on the dresser was a collection of gifts, still in their wrapping paper, and a photo album labeled Blanch. With trembling hands, I opened it. School photos. A clipping from when I won an award in 6th grade. A blurry picture of me leaving school. You really did try. I whispered, the reality finally sinking in. Every single day, he replied, his voice rough, and I'm not going anywhere now. If you'll let me be your dad again. That night, I crawled into the softest bed I'd ever felt. For the first time in years, I felt safe. Maybe being abandoned wasn't the end. Maybe it was the beginning I desperately needed. The next morning, I found him in the kitchen, burning pancakes. I remember your pancakes, I said, smiling. You used to make smiley faces with chocolate chips. His face lit up. You remember that, after breakfast, he introduced me to Judith Bennett, a family law attorney. What your mother did is abandonment, she explained. It's illegal. There's also financial misconduct. I don't want to get her in trouble, I said. I just want to be safe. The choice is yours, my father said, but I want to seek full custody if that's what you want. I can really choose. The court listens to kids your age, Judith said, especially in cases like this. 2 days later, my mother finally called. I let it go to voicemail. Her voice was falsely bright. Blanche, honey, there's been a terrible misunderstanding. I thought you understood the plan was for you to stay home. Richard felt you needed independence. I didn't abandon you, sweetie. That's such a harsh word. She was rewriting history. Gaslighting me? I didn't call back. With my father and Judith's support, I decided to stay. We began the legal process. A week later, we went to get my things from her house while she was still in Bali. I needed to do it, to close that chapter myself. The house was eerily silent. The photos on the walls were all of Richard, his kids, and my mother. Almost none of me. I showed my father my room, the smallest one, at the end of the hall. This was your room, he said, disbelief in his voice. It's fine. I said automatically, no, sweetheart. He said, his voice soft, it's not fine. You deserved better. As we packed, I found a box of keepsakes in my desk. Photos from before the divorce, birthday cards from my dad, a teddy bear he'd given me. You kept these, he said, emotional. I never completely believed her. I admitted. Then in my closet behind my shoes, I found them. A stack of envelopes, bound with a rubber band, all addressed to me in my father's handwriting. My hands shook as I opened them. A birthday card for my 13th birthday. A letter with his new phone number. Photos of him at his company, all of it, hidden. She kept all of these from me. I whispered, tears streaming down. All this time, I thought you forgot me. He pulled me into a hug. Never, not for a single day. In my mother's office, I found the final proof. Financial records showing the child's support payments, court documents of his petitions for visitation, and a draft letter to her attorney calling me a complication to be managed. It was all there. In black and white, when everything was packed, I sat at my empty desk and wrote her a letter. Dear Mom, I began. I told her everything about the betrayal, the hidden letters, the financial records. I told her I was choosing to live with my dad, not as revenge. I wrote, but because I deserve to be somewhere I'm wanted and valued. I hope someday you understand the damage your choices have caused. Despite everything, I don't hate you, but I need to love myself enough to leave. I left the letter on my stripped bed. I placed my house key beside it, and I walked out without looking back. 3 days later, she returned from Bali. My phone exploded. Where are you? Why is your room empty? Call me. How could you do this to me? Please come home, sweetie. We can work this out. The messages cycled through anger, manipulation, and fake sadness. I didn't reply. A week later, she showed up at my father's gate, pressing the intercom over and over. You don't have to see her, my father said. I will, I said, but I want you and Judith there. When we opened the door, her face was a mess of relief and outrage. She wore a designer sundress, the picture of wealth. Blanche, thank God, she exclaimed, moving to hug me. I stepped back. Her arms fell. What is going on? Why are you with him? She spat the word. We sat in the living room. Judith was there as a witness. So this is what it's about, my mother said with a brittle laugh. He lured you away with luxury. I should have known. That's not why I'm here, I said, my voice steady. I'm here because you abandoned me at an airport. I'm here because you lied about Dad for years. I'm here because I found the letters you hid. Her face hardened. You went through my private things. How dare you? They were addressed to me. I shot back. My father finally spoke. There were no broken promises, Karen, only your efforts to erase me from her life. You have no right, she hissed. You have no idea what it was like raising her alone. I sent child support every month, he said, calm and even. Far more than required, money you spent on yourself. Her face flushed. That's a lie. I sacrificed everything for her, including abandoning her at an airport for a vacation with your new family. Judith interjected, her tone cold and professional. My mother was speechless for a moment. Then she turned to me. I didn't abandon you. I gave you an opportunity for independence. If you had just gone home, none of this drama would be necessary. I stared at her, my anger tightening in my chest. You left me alone at an international airport with $200 and no key. You didn't tell me to go home until you were walking away. You ignored my calls. How is that an opportunity? You're twisting what happened, she insisted, but her voice wavered. My father leaned in. Karen, we have security footage, witness statements from airline staff, your texts trying to cover your tracks. The color drained from her face. You're building a case against me. You want to take my daughter and throw me in jail. This is about what's best for Blanche. Judith explained. She wants to live with her father. The court will honor that. My mother crumbled. The tears were real this time. Blanche, please, I made a mistake. I was wrong. But you can't leave me for him. We're a family. We stopped being a family, I said quietly, when you decided Richard and his children were more important than me. It wasn't like that. Then what was it like? I asked. Help me understand why you hid the letters, lied about the money, and then abandoned me for a vacation. She opened her mouth. Closed it. Finally, she whispered, Richard thought it would be better if you stayed home. He said the resort was for adults, for his children, who were used to that life. I was afraid of losing him. The raw honesty was more painful than all her lies. So you chose him, I said, over me. I chose financial security, she countered. Do you know what it's like to be a single mother with no money? Richard offered us a better life. He offered you a better life, I corrected. I was just excess baggage. Before she could answer, the front door swung open. It was Richard. His face was tight with anger. Karen, this has gone on long enough. Get in the car now. My father stood. How did you get past security? Richard ignored him, glaring at my mother. I told you not to come here. You're making it worse. Our lawyer said no contact. My mother shrank under his gaze. I just wanted to see Blanche. And now you have, he said dismissively. Let's go. As she rose to follow him, I called out. Is this really what you want, Mom? Someone who treats you like a child, and me like an inconvenience. She paused, conflict all over her face, but Richard took her elbow, firm and possessive. The car, Karen, now. The last image I had of her was her back as she walked away, just like at the airport, but this time I wasn't the one being left behind. In the end, the court granted my father full custody. My mother, with the lawyer Richard paid for, fought it at first, but the evidence was too much. She eventually agreed. The judge ordered her to repay the child support and said we could start visitation only after joint therapy. I agreed to the therapy. It was hard. She'd swing between apologies and justifications. I just wanted us to have security, she'd repeat. So you made sure I ended up alone at an airport instead. I'd reply. Over time, I set firm boundaries. I was never moving back. I wouldn't pretend the past didn't happen. She slowly accepted it. My father never bad-mouthed her. When I asked him why, he said, hating her would only hurt you. You're half her, whether we like it or not. Besides, she gave me you, and for that, I can forgive almost anything. Healing wasn't linear. Some days, the memory of that shrug still took my breath away. Other days, I could see her with compassion. My therapist told me, forgiveness doesn't mean what happened was okay. It means you're choosing not to let it consume your future. I built a new life. I went to college. I found my purpose helping other kids from broken homes. On my 25th birthday, I wrote my mother a letter. I've learned people can only give what they have to give. I wrote, your capacity for love was damaged long before I came along. Recognizing that has freed me. She wrote back, you deserved better than what I could be as a mother. I am sorry for that every day. When I got married, my father walked me down the aisle. Tears in his eyes, he whispered, from the moment you called me from that airport, all I wanted was to see you happy and whole. Look at you now. My mother attended. She was appropriate. She didn't try to take credit for the woman I'd become. And that was her own form of growth. The airport abandonment, the moment that once defined me, is now just one chapter in my story, not the conclusion. Being left behind forced me to find a strength I never knew I had. It led me back to my father's unwavering love. If you've ever felt abandoned by someone who should have protected you, please know this, your worth was never determined by their failure. Their limitations are not your destiny. Family isn't always about blood. It's about the people who consistently choose you, who show up. My father taught me that. My mother, in her absence, confirmed it. Your story matters, and you are never, ever as alone as you might feel in your darkest moments. The years after I made my choice weren't always easy. Building a new life never is. But for the first time, I was building it on a foundation of truth, not lies. Living with my dad was a learning curve for both of us. We had years of separation to navigate. There were awkward silences sometimes, moments where we'd both realize there was a gap in our shared history. He'd missed my first day of middle school, my first crush, learning to drive. But we made a conscious decision to fill those gaps with the present. He was patient, so patient. He never forced anything. He'd just be there, making his terrible pancakes on Sunday mornings, asking about my day, and actually listening to the answer. He became my safe harbor. Therapy with Dr. Wilson was crucial. She helped me untangle the knot of anger, grief, and guilt I carried. She helped me see that my mother's actions were about her own deep insecurities and fears, not a reflection of my value. You were a child, she'd remind me. Her job was to protect you. Her failure to do that belongs to her, not to you. Starting at Westlake Academy was terrifying. I was the new girl with a dramatic past. But my dad was right about a fresh start. I met Zoe and Aiden, the literature, loving twins, and Haley, the artist. They didn't know the before version of me. They just accepted the now me. They became my first real, chosen family outside of my dad. The court process finalized everything, full legal custody to my father. The structured visitation with my mother began, but it was strained. Our relationship had been fractured beyond a simple repair. We'd have scheduled dinners, but the conversation was always surface level. She'd ask about school, I'd give polite answers. The elephant in the room was always the airport. We learned to dance around it. I learned through Judith that she and Richard divorced about 2 years after I left. It turned out the perfect life. She sacrificed everything for wasn't so perfect after all. There was a strange, hollow feeling to that news. It wasn't satisfaction. It was just sadness. Sadness that she had traded our authentic, if struggling, life for a gilded cage that eventually locked her out, too. My father, true to his word, never gloated. When I told him about the divorce, he just nodded and said, I'm sorry to hear that. I know that couldn't have been easy for her. His capacity for empathy after everything astounded me. High school graduation was a milestone I once couldn't even imagine. Standing there as valedictorian, looking out at the crowd and seeing my dad's face beaming with so much pride, it healed a part of me I thought was broken forever. My mother was there, a few rows back. She gave me a small, genuine smile. It was a quiet acknowledgement of the moment, without the pressure of pretending everything was normal, and that was okay. College on the East Coast was my next chapter of independence. It was there, away from the shadows of my past, that I truly found my voice. I majored in psychology, driven by a need to understand the very dynamics I'd lived through. My internship at a nonprofit for children of divorce wasn't just a job, it felt like my calling. I could look into these kids' eyes and tell them, with absolute certainty, that it wasn't their fault. I knew because I had been them. My relationship with my mother evolved into something distant but cordial. We found a new rhythm, occasional phone calls, holiday cards. The hard edges of our history softened with time and distance. The anger didn't disappear, but it lost its sharpness, becoming a dull ache of a memory. I had to accept that she could never be the mother I needed her to be, and in that acceptance, I found a different kind of peace. On my 25th birthday, I finally wrote her the letter I'd been composing in my head for a decade. I didn't write it out of anger. I wrote it to set us both free. I've learned that people can only give what they have within themselves to give. I wrote, "Your capacity for unconditional love was damaged long before I came along. Recognizing this has freed me from expecting what you could never provide. I hope you find your own peace." Her response was brief, but it was the most honest thing she'd ever given me. "You deserved better than what I could be as a mother. I am sorry for that every day. It wasn't an excuse, it was an admission, and for where we were it was enough. When I got married at 28, my father walked me down the aisle. As we stood at the back of the ceremony, his arm linked with mine, he looked at me, his eyes shining with tears. 'From the moment you called me from that airport,' he whispered, his voice thick with emotion, 'all I wanted was to see you happy and whole. Look at you now.' And I was. I really was. My mother attended the wedding with a new, quieter partner. She was gracious. She didn't try to mother me or claim any credit. She was simply a guest, bearing witness to my happiness. And in its own way, that was her final gift to me. The space to be fully myself, without the weight of her expectations or her guilt. Now, as I build my own family, the lessons from both my parents are my guide. From my father, I learned the profound power of showing up, of patient, consistent love. From my mother, I learned what happens when you prioritize image over authenticity, and it's a path I choose to avoid every single day. The airport abandonment, that moment that once felt like the end of my story, is now just a turning point. It was the painful, brutal catalyst that forced me onto a different path. A path that led me back to my father. A path that led me to my own strength. If you take anything from my story, let it be this: your beginning does not have to dictate your ending. Being left behind does not mean you are worth leaving. Sometimes, the most painful rejections are redirections to where you were always meant to be. Family isn't just who you're born to, it's who shows up for you. It's who chooses you day after day, and you are always, always worth choosing. Thank you for sharing this journey with me. Life has a funny way of coming full circle. The chapters we think are closed sometimes have a surprise epilogue. A few years into my marriage, my father sat me down. He had that look, a mix of nervousness and excitement I remembered from when he'd tried to surprise me as a kid. "There's someone I'd like you to meet," he said. Her name was Alina, a curator at an art museum with kind eyes and a calm, steady presence. She didn't try to be my mom. She was just Alina. She made my dad laugh in a way I hadn't heard since before the divorce. Seeing him truly happy, without the lingering sadness he'd carried for so long, was its own kind of healing. When they got married, I was his best woman. My toast wasn't about the past. It was about second chances and the beautiful, unexpected shapes a family can take. Around the same time, I found out I was pregnant. Telling my dad he was going to be a grandfather was one of the best moments of my life. The pure, uncomplicated joy on his face. It washed away so many old hurts. But the pregnancy also stirred up complicated feelings about my mother. The closer I got to becoming a parent myself, the more I wrestled with her choices. How could you hold your child and not move heaven and earth for them? The question haunted me. I decided I needed one last conversation, not for her, for me, for the baby I was carrying. We met at a quiet cafe. She looked older, softer. The sharp edges of her ambition had smoothed out. "I'm going to have a baby," I told her, her eyes filled with tears, real ones. "Oh, Blanche, that's wonderful." There was a long silence. Then she said, "I am so sorry, for everything, not just the airport, for all of it, the lies, the letters, for making you feel like a burden. There is no excuse. I was selfish and scared, and I failed you." It was the apology I'd waited half my life for. And hearing it, I realized I didn't need it anymore. The weight had already been lifted by my own healing. "Thank you for saying that," I said. "This baby, he or she is going to know a grandfather who is the most loyal, loving man in the world. And they will know you as their grandmother, but the past stays in the past. We start from here." It was my final boundary. An acknowledgement and a release. The day my son, Leo, was born was the day I truly understood the depth of my father's love for me. Holding that tiny, dependent life in my arms, I felt a ferocity of love I never knew possible. It was absolute and unconditional. In that moment, the last fragment of doubt, the childish fear that I had somehow caused my mother to leave, vanished forever. I finally knew in my bones that her actions were about a flaw in her, not a lack in me. My father is the grandfather I always dreamed of for my children. Patient, present, and endlessly silly. He tells Leo stories about when I was little, carefully editing out the painful parts, building a bridge of happy memories between our past and his future. My mother is a careful, occasional presence in his life. She sends gifts and visits on birthdays. There's a tenderness there, a second chance to get it right, in a small way. She adores Leo, and he knows her as Grandma. It's a quieter, simpler relationship than what I had with her, and maybe that's what makes it work. Not long ago, I was pushing Leo on a swing at the park. His little stomach fluttered with excitement, his laughter echoing exactly like mine used to. I looked over at the bench where my father was watching us, his face full of so much love, and it hit me. The full, incredible circle of it all. The little girl being pushed on the swings by her mother, who would later abandon her. The teenager, sobbing on an airport bench, believing she was utterly alone. The woman, now a mother herself, pushing her own son on the swings, surrounded by a love that is steadfast and true. The story that began with an ending at gate 24 didn't end there. It was a brutal, painful bend in the road, one that led me away from a life where I was merely tolerated, and toward a life where I am profoundly, unconditionally loved. My name is Blanche. I was abandoned at 15. But I was found, I was chosen, I was loved back to life, and if you are listening to this, feeling that same hollow ache of rejection, please hold on. Your gate 24 is not your destination. It's just a layover on the way to where you're truly meant to be. Keep going, your story is still being written, and the best chapters are ahead. Thank you for being a part of mine. There's a peace that comes after the storm has long passed. When the waves of your past become gentle ripples, reminding you of where you've been, but no longer threatening to pull you under. I'm in that season of peace now. My work with the nonprofit has grown into a full-fledged foundation. We partner with family courts to be a voice for kids who feel voiles. I look at these children, their eyes holding a pain I know all too well, and I get to tell them, with absolute certainty, that they are not alone, that their story isn't over. I get to be the person I needed at 15, and in healing them, I continue to heal myself. My father and Alina are happily retired, splitting their time between the house on the cliff and a small villa in Italy. Our weekly video calls are filled with my dad's terrible jokes and Leo begging for not Alina's stories. Seeing my father so content, so free from the ghosts of our past, is a gift I never stop being thankful for. My relationship with my mother settled into a quiet, distant fondness. She passed away a few years ago. It was peaceful. At her bedside, I found a small, worn photo of the two of us from the park when I was little, tucked into her Bible. It was a quiet testament to the love that was once there, before fear and ambition twisted it. I grieved for the mother she could have been, but I also made peace with the mother she was. Forgiveness, I've learned, is not about condoning what happened. It's about releasing yourself from the prison of holding on to it. Just last week, my son Leo, who's now 12, came home from school with a family tree project. We sat at the kitchen table, photos spread out everywhere. He pointed to a picture of my father. Papa is my grandpa. Then he pointed to a picture of my mother, and this was Grandma Karen. He looked at the blank space between my childhood photos and my adult ones. The lost years, Mom, he asked, his voice so innocent it almost broke me. Why didn't you live with Grandma when you were my age? I took a deep breath. The story I had carried for so long, the one that once felt like a dark secret, was now just a part of our history. A lesson in resilience. I pulled him close. It's a long story, sweetheart, but the short version is, sometimes people get lost and make very bad choices. Grandma was lost for a little while, but her bad choice led me back to Papa, and that led me to your dad, and that led us to you. He thought about that for a moment, his brow furrowed. Then he smiled. So it's a good story, then, because it ends with us. Out of the mouths of babes, he was right. It is a good story. It's not a story about an airport. It's a story about a phone call. It's not a story about a shrug. It's a story about an embrace. It's not a story about being left. It's a story about being found. The pain was real. The betrayal was deep. I would never minimize that, but I no longer let it define me. It's a scar, not an open wound. A part of my history, but not my entire identity. So this is where my story rests, not ends, but rests. If you are watching this, and you're in the thick of your own pain, in the middle of your own airport, please hear me, hold on, make the call, take the step. Believe that there is a love for you that does not come with conditions or compromises. The people who are meant to be your family will find you. They will choose you, and you will build a life so beautiful, so full of genuine love, that the pain of your past will become the foundation of your strength. You are not defined by who left you. You are defined by the incredible person you become after you choose to stay and fight for yourself. Your worth is not up for negotiation. Your place in this world is non-negotiable. From the girl who was left behind with nothing but $200 and a broken heart, to the woman who built a life of abundance, thank you for walking this path with me. Your path is waiting for you too. And it is more beautiful than you can possibly imagine. Keep going. There's a quiet that comes after you've told your story enough times, when the words no longer catch in your throat and the memories have lost their sharp edges. They've become smooth stones you carry in your pocket, reminders of the journey, not the weight of it. I'm in that quiet now. My hair is streaked with silver, much like my father's was when I saw him on the tarmac that life-changing day. My son, Leo, is a man now with a family of his own. I watch him with his daughter, my little granddaughter, and I see the cycle of love continuing, unbroken. He is the father I always wished for him to be, present, patient, and fiercely devoted. The ghost of abandonment that once haunted our bloodline ends with me. My father passed a few years ago, peacefully, in his sleep, with Alina and I holding his hands. At his funeral, I didn't speak of the pain or the airport. I spoke of the man who got a phone call and didn't hesitate. The man who kept a room ready for a daughter he wasn't sure he'd ever see again. I spoke of his pancakes, his terrible jokes, and the unwavering certainty of his love. He was my greatest redemption. Sometimes I go down to the beach below his old house. I listen to the waves, the same waves that witnessed our healing. I can almost feel him there, and I talk to him. I tell him about Leo, about my foundation, about the thousands of kids we've helped find their own safe harbors. I never built a relationship with my mother's other children. Our paths were too different. The bridge between us burned before it was ever built. I heard they turned out okay. I hope they found their own peace. We were all just kids, caught in the wake of adult choices. My work is my legacy now. It's the meaning I forged from the hurt. We've helped change laws, implement better support systems in courts, and most importantly, we've given children a voice. We've shown them that a difficult beginning does not predetermine your ending. I look at the young people who come through our programs, their eyes full of a hope they thought they'd lost. And I know, with every fiber of my being, that every painful step of my journey was worth it. Because it led me here to this understanding, this peace. The world will tell you that your story is about your trauma, that you are the sum of the bad things that happened to you, but that's a lie. Your story is about your response. Your story is about the love you chose to accept after the rejection, the family you built after the one you lost, the life you created in the space of the one that was taken from you. I was Blanche, the girl abandoned at gate 24, but I am also Blanche, the daughter who was found. I am Blanche, the mother who broke the cycle. I am Blanche, the grandmother who gets to pour only love into a child's life. I am Blanche, who took her pain and turned it into purpose. The name I was given means white, pure. For so long, I thought it was a cruel joke. Now I see it as a prophecy, a life scuffed and mudded by circumstance, but ultimately washed clean by love, by choice, by resilience. So this is my final word on it all. This is the last page. If you take one thing from my story, let it be this. Your life is not a single chapter. It is not your darkest moment. The people who failed you do not get to write your ending. You are the author. You hold the pen, and your story, your beautiful, resilient, powerful story, is always, always worth telling, and it is always, always worth living. Thank you for listening. Be the love you needed. It is the most powerful rewrite of all. You know, there's a question I get asked sometimes, usually in a quiet moment after I've shared my story. People will lean in and ask softly, "Do you ever think about what would have happened if she'd taken you to Bali?" And I used to. I really did. I'd imagine an alternate universe where I spent 2 weeks by a luxury pool, feeling like an outsider in a designer swimsuit, coming home to a house that was never truly mine. A life where the slow, quiet erosion of my spirit continued, year after year. I don't think about that anymore. Somewhere along the way, in the busy, beautiful chaos of building a life I love, those thoughts just faded. They lost their power. The ghost of that other girl, the one who went to Bali, she doesn't haunt me. I think she just quietly dissolved, her potential pain traded for my very real joy. Now, I think about the legacy of love. I think about my father's hands, the same hands that signed countless business deals, gently holding my newborn daughter. I think about the sound of my husband's laughter echoing in our home. I think about the determined look in a teenager's eyes at my foundation when they realize, for the first time, that their situation does not define their future. That is the real story, not the abandonment, but the abundance that followed. The pain of the past becomes, if you let it, a deep and fertile soil, and from that soil, the most beautiful things can grow. A deeper empathy, a fiercer love, a more profound gratitude for the simple, steady presence of those who choose to stay. So if you're listening to this and your heart is heavy with a hurt that feels like it will never leave you, please be gentle with yourself. Your healing isn't on a timer, but trust me when I tell you that a day will come when you realize the memory has lost its sting. You'll be living your life, a good life, your life, and you'll understand that the person who hurt you is just a footnote in the epic novel of who you became. They were a single chapter, but you are the whole story. My story began with an ending, but it taught me that every ending is just a new beginning in disguise. This is Blanche, signing off with a heart full of love and a life full of peace. Thank you for being part of my journey. Now, go and live yours. The story that began with a casual shrug in a crowded airport ends here, in the quiet certainty of a life built on truth. Blanche's journey from abandoned teenager to a woman grounded in love and purpose is not just a tale of survival, but a profound lesson in redemption. The core truth she discovered is this: family is not a matter of blood, but a matter of choice. It is built by those who show up, who stay, and who choose you relentlessly, even after years of silence. Her mother's betrayal was a devastating lesson in conditional love, but her father's unwavering rescue was the foundation upon which she rebuilt her entire understanding of what love truly means. The pivotal moment of abandonment at Gate 24, which once defined her as a victim, was reframed as the catalyst that set her free. It was the painful, necessary fracture that forced her out of a life where she was merely tolerated and into a life where she was truly, completely seen and valued. In losing the mother she knew, she rediscovered the father she had lost, and in the process, she found herself. Her healing was not about forgetting the past, but about integrating it. Through therapy, time, and the steady, patient love of her father, she learned to carry her history not as an open wound, but as a scar, a testament to her resilience. She transformed her pain into her purpose, dedicating her life to ensuring other children would have a voice, turning her deepest hurt into her greatest strength. In the end, Blanche's story teaches us that our beginnings do not dictate our endings. The people who fail us do not get the final word on our worth. We are the authors of our own stories, and we have the power to fill the pages with characters who choose us, with a narrative of resilience, and with a legacy of love that breaks every cycle of hurt that came before. The final, quiet truth of her life is this: being left behind was not her definition, it was her redirection, and the destination was a life more whole, more loving, and more authentic than she could have ever imagined from that lonely airport bench.